This is reading project 14, Snakes. And so I'm just really going to talk about the entire thing, not really break it down. So Kanjuz, the child who raised poisonous snakes, kind of doesn't have one single fixed interpretation. However, there is one very strong / clear argument that emerges. And that is the story explores how fear, isolation, and misunderstanding shape reality, especially from a child's perspective, and how what is labeled as dangerous or poisonous might actually reflect society's anxieties more than any inherent evil. The narrative presents a surreal environment in which the child's relationship with the snakes feel both intimate and unsettling. Rather than portraying the snakes as purely threatening, the story suggests that they exist in the space between imagination and reality, shaped by emotional experience rather than objective truth. The snakes themselves can be understood symbolically rather than literally. They appear to represent inner thoughts, fears, or aspects of identity that are considered unacceptable or dangerous by both. In the story, it's kind of hard to differentiate kind of if the snakes themselves are real or not, especially when you think about like the lines of how they're in his stomach, in the child's stomach, and how the lady manically chopped off 8 snakes' heads, kind of things like that. It's hard to see if they're actually real or not, and it kind of makes one think, oh, maybe they're more of a symbol rather than real. And so the child nurtures these snakes, which suggests a kind of acceptance of what others reject, especially in society. And this creates tension with the outside world, where authority figures and social norms attempt to control or eliminate what they do not understand. In this way, the snakes may represent individuality, creativity, or even trauma, things that grow stronger when hidden or suppressed. So kind of in like a bland world, the snakes may be seen as dangerous and or different. And so especially, so it would be hard to understand if they are real or not, or if they represent that. And it kind of reminds me of a story, kind of like maybe like Fahrenheit 451, where it's a bland world and like reading is bad. So then that way, the snakes would represent the reading and something that represents something different from that society. And then when compared to the snakes in Gilgamesh, an interesting contrast kind of appears. In that epic, the snake steals the plant of immortality, seemingly taking something valuable away from Gilgamesh. However, the loss ultimately leads to an important realization about human purpose and legacy. Similarly, in Kanju's story, the snakes may seem to take something, normalcy, safety, or acceptance, but they also provide insight. They force confrontation with deeper truths about fear, control, and identity, rather than simply stealing the snakes reshape understanding. Ultimately, the snakes in Kanju's story are not just destructive forces, they function as symbols of transformation. They disrupt conventional thinking and push both the character and the reader, to think about what is truly dangerous: the snakes themselves or the rigid systems that attempt to suppress them. In Gilgamesh, the presence of the snakes leads to a kind of realization, but here it is less about that sense, that an external purpose, and more about internal complexity. And so really, I feel like with this reading and how difficult it is in some aspects to understand, it's kind of up to us as the readers to decide for ourselves what we think the snakes represent. And we have to decide if we want to kind of follow the path of them being literal, or if they're a symbol. So yeah, that's my reading project.